Oops, didn't have the intro logo up. That's going to be awkward on YouTube. Oh well. And welcome back to Beerfield Fantasy Football. I am your host at Hot BFF with two P's, as always, joined by at 30 BFF with two F's, coming to us from Springfield, Illinois, by the power of the internet. Thank you for putting up with the semi-long gap between episode. I kind of sort of was a little bit busy last weekend. More on that in a minute. Dan, you were off today. How are you?
I'm good. I was lazy again. It was nice. I get to work 6 days in a row, so it's all fun and over with now.
Got to hand deliver Dan's shorts because somehow he managed to leave his pants at my wedding.
It's the place that we're going to talk about here in a second.
Yeah. Anyway, housekeeping real quick. As always, you can follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, to Untapped, at BeerfieldFF, Facebook, YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football. We have merch. We have a Patreon. There's some form of Beerfield Fantasy Football stuff. I'm actually wearing one of our shirts right now, as you can see on YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football. So yeah, as mentioned, the long hiatus was because I got married over the weekend. So congratulations to me, I guess.
Congratulations to you.
But the wedding was a super fun time. I am incredibly happy to have that over with and done. One other thing, by the way, is one of my gifts from that wedding. I got one of those physics beer dispenser things. Have you seen those?
I have not.
So it's supposed to make your beer taste like it's fresh off tap, even if it comes in bottle or growler. And I basically believe it aerates it as it comes through, and then you get a little bit of control over the head and stuff on it. I ran a CBS through it yesterday. And it was pretty solid. It kind of worked as advertised. Now, not having CBS off a draft, I can't really make that comparison, but I can make the comparison from the other times I've had CBS straight from the bottle, and the flavors were definitely more forward. So
nice. That's awesome.
I'm gonna start using that for my beer reviews, and we'll see if that's pretty consistent or not. Also, another reason we didn't record on Sunday, there was an ending to something, and it was not a great ending from what I understand. Of course, I'm talking about WWE Money in the Bank, where Brock Lesnar made a return to win the men's briefcase, which I was not, happy with. Dan, did you think I was talking about something else?
Oh, I know. Like, there's this big event. It's like a game of something. I think Thrones. More of
never heard of her.
I don't know what her name is either, but yeah. Well, she sucked in Swallow, so I guess that's not fun.
That is no fun. All right, on to the show content. On that note, hey, we got a fun one for you today. So, there's an age-old adage that Abraham Lincoln once said: "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take," or at least I think it was Abraham Lincoln. And we had a listener reach out to us through Facebook and ask us if we would rate their Dynasty rookie draft on a podcast. And it just so happened to line up because we were going to do a rookie mock draft, but why analyze a rookie mock draft when you've got a real draft to analyze?
Exactly.
So we're going to analyze that instead. So just, hey, if you have ideas for episode, throw them out there because you never know. We might actually use it. But first, let's talk about what we're going to be drinking while that episode happens.
Beer review.
Shout out Nick Sparts and a big thank you to him. Getting reviews and previews mixed up.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. There we go.
What's fueling Beerfield?
Feels like I haven't done this in a month, and I think it's been like 8 or 9 days.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Anyway, Dan, what do you got?
I got Vanilla Space Crystals is from Little Beaver. They're out of Bloomington, Illinois. This is a double IPA triple dry hop Citra Bomb with vanilla and milk sugar.
All right. And I am drinking something that was actually brewed as a gift to me, especially for my wedding. It is called Danger Zone. It is from Dive Bomb Brewing, which is not yet open. But my buddy Brent Sperry is I've been home brewing for a while. I was looking into actually opening up a brewery, and this is his first crack at a hazy. So he's currently brewing out of Petersburg, Illinois. The brewery, I believe, would actually be in Havana, Illinois, if that does come to fruition. But we will have a full review of both of these beers about midway through the episode. Let's get into the news.
News.
All right, starting off with the news portion of the news. Duke Johnson reported to OTAs after requesting a trade. This, to me, would seem to suggest that he's not going to be a holdout candidate and try to force their hand to make that move.
Yeah, I don't think he has quite the clout to pull off a Le'Veon Bell.
No.
Hopefully they can still go on his wishes and trade him to a team that can use him.
I hope so. Cardinals defensive back Patrick Peterson has been suspended for 6 games under the league's performance-enhancing drug policy. It was 6 instead of 4 because they also found a masking agent. So it wasn't like I didn't know I was doing it because he was trying to hide it.
Jesus.
So
well, it's good for
anybody playing the Cardinals.
Fantasy. Yeah, it's good for. There might be some shootouts there, especially if Cliff can get shit figured out early on.
I absolutely think there will be some shootouts there, and that's their secondary was weak already, and that definitely does not help when you take the All-Pro out.
Yeah.
Corey Coleman's been working as the Giants' number 3 during OTAs. So that's notable, not because there's going to be a ton of volume there, but notable because we don't know how that volume is gonna spread out. I don't think it's Corey Coleman with Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard there, but there are targets to be had. So just worth keeping an eye on that. Right now, he does have the inside track at that third wide receiver spot.
There's potential super buy low in Dynasty for just some depth pieces.
Yeah, Coleman's an insane buy low candidate that I would absolutely at least kick the tires on. Or if you're trying to swing a bigger deal, see if you can get him thrown in on top.
Yeah.
Zeke Elliott was cuffed at a Vegas music festival over the weekend and later released. It was he apparently shoved over a security guard, which is not surprising given the interaction that we had with Zeke. So,
the more things don't change.
Yeah,
it's the same. What the fuck, Zeke?
Yeah, conduct issue again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think anything will come out of this because he was released. So, I mean, no charges are going to be brought against him. But at the same time, he's had a 6-game suspension for conduct issues before. And he's only year 3 guy, I think? 3 or 4? I think it's 4.
It's going into his 4th year.
4th. That's what it is. Either way, though, that's not good for a player that's still young.
Yeah, especially when there's not one more mishap and he could be done.
Yep.
And that's it. So.
Yep. All right. And roster news. The by far most important news of last week. The Colts signed quarterback Chad Kelly. And
Chad, AK-47.
Yeah, he deserves a shot. He's going to get a shot. You hope he can keep his act clean. I've been excited to actually see him in game action. We've seen him in preseason. If he can put together another strong preseason, I don't know that he necessarily gives Jacoby Brissett a run, but at the same time, the way his offense is going, I do think he's better fit to be a backup in an offense that requires more of a pocket passer with a bit of mobility than Brissett, who's more of a run first type that doesn't necessarily have the accurate arm that we've seen Chad Kelly have in preseason and in college. So, it is notable in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a show favorite, and we're gonna follow his storied career until it comes, crashing down in a blaze of glory. So
and we will celebrate when he makes the Hall of Fame after this tumultuous start.
That's right.
The Bills signed tight end Lee Smith. He'll mostly be a blocking tight end, but he does go back to the team that drafted him.
Okay.
Seahawks signed quarterback Geno Smith. Nobody cares. 49ers signed tight end Levine Toilolo. Nobody cares. The Jets signed restricted free agent Robbie Anderson to a 1-year, $3.11 million contract and waived tight end Jordan Leggett, so they finally got rid of some of the mess behind Chris Herndon.
Yay!
Yeah, and nobody cares. The Bucs ended the long 1-week tenure of running back Kerwin Williams, puts an end to that, to his era in Tampa Bay. He was
He shall be missed.
fantastic. He shall be missed.
He shall be missed.
The Panthers signed wide receiver Aldrick Robinson, giving them another person to try to fight for targets behind DJ Moore.
Yay!
And the Texans expectedly released tight end Ryan Griffin, but rumor has it he doesn't remember that it happened.
He's still drunk, actually, and throwing fits.
And concussed.
And probably concussed because of it.
Word. So, notable because he would have had the inside track at the starter spot, but now we're looking at Kahale Waring and Jordan Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Thomas, Jordan Akins, though he's probably almost on a stretcher at this point in time. He's got to be pushing like 55 years old right now.
Akins?
Super old rookie last year, for those of you.
And he's more of a blocker. So, I mean, when you look at move tight ends to a team that's traditionally used them, I mean, it's going to be Kahale Waring and Jordan Thomas. And Jordan Thomas was a rookie last year that was used a bit, and Kahale Waring continues to be a insane buy in rookie drafts. So, I mean, this just helps his stock.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, yeah, huge fan.
Yep. All right, in injury news, Miami wide receiver Albert Wilson is not participating in OTAs with the same injury that landed him on IR last season. It was the hip. So that recovery is apparently not going too hot.
Yeah. As much as I liked his fit with Ryan Fitzpatrick, if he can't get healthy.
Yeah. If he can't get healthy, it's a good fit, but this is not what you want to hear from a hip injury sustained in November that apparently didn't require surgery. Maybe it should have required surgery.
It sounds like it should have.
Yeah. Mike Weber was back at practice after an injury scare last week. He'll be in contention for Zeke's backup job. Jack,
might be starting if Zeke.
Yeah,
he continues to be an idiot.
Right. Jack Doyle remains on track to be ready by training camp. Meanwhile, Eric Ebron is recovering from off-season groin surgery. So, interesting on Ebron just because he was never on the injury report with the groin injury last year. So, this is new.
Huh.
So,
okay.
Doesn't seem to be too serious. I haven't heard any concerns about him missing the start of training camp, but monitor that situation. As a Colts tight end will be productive. It's just a matter of one, who, both, whatever.
Yeah.
Tyler Eifert has been a full go for off-season workouts after last season's broken ankle, so he'll get another 6 weeks before he's on IR.
I think 6 weeks might be a little too generous.
Mm-hmm. However, he should be of value in a very, very tight end light league still.
Yeah, I agree.
Colt McCoy is expected to be ready to go come training camp. So we talked about that roster battle last week. So between him, Case Keenum, and Dwayne Haskins, so he will be a full go for that. T.Y. Hilton's going to be limited during off-season workouts due to an ankle injury because that's not an every other week thing during the season. He'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
Bengals running back Rodney Anderson's expected to be ready to go by training camp, as is Redskins running back Darius Geis.
Good.
So, good news for both of them. Geis especially, if people have forgotten about him, go check in, try to acquire him in Dynasty for sure, because he's gonna be a second-year running back that has yet to play it down that would have easily been, to me at least, the running back one in this year's draft class.
He would have been the 101 in this year's.
He would have been.
Class.
So
I don't think it's particularly close.
I don't either. So if people are slapping him with an, oh man, he's injury prone tag because he tore an ACL, go get him. And I really think that he's going to be a value come redraft time as well. So just don't forget about Darius, guys. As for Rodney Anderson, Dan, I know you like him. I don't like his prospects as much with Joe Mixon being there. And even if they do cut Gio Bernard, Trevion Williams being more fit for that style, but he's healthy. And even if it's not the Bengals, he may get a chance to showcase what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, like, for anything, he's just a handcuff. Mix is not a model of health at this point in 2 years. He's been banged up. He's missed a couple games every year. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of talent if he can remain healthy, and that's been the tough part for him. Yep.
All right, on to retirement. hasn't been officially announced, but it was basically announced over his Twitter saying his watch is ended. Doug Baldwin does appear to be retiring from the NFL after multiple offseason surgeries. So he was a value for a long time that I'm sure won some people some championships, traditionally outperformed his draft spot. It was just overall good and solid, especially for coming in as a UDFA. So he will be missed.
Yes, I completely agree. And as for Dynasty, if you can afford the roster spot, I wouldn't quite cut them. We've seen guys retire. The team that they were on loses players at that position, and they come back and perform. So you don't have to go on and drop him at this point. He's not a strict hold by any means if it's, if you're in, it remains true. But there's been pretty common instances of players coming out of retirement to give it another go.
Well, and the fact that he hasn't said that yet, it was a series of tweets that ended that way, and everybody's thinking that's what it means, and that's why Seattle cut him, but maybe it's not. Maybe it was just my watch ended in Seattle. He's going to get healthy, and the fact that he hasn't officially retired opens him up to come back someplace or somewhere or sometime down the road. So when it comes to the guys you might be looking at potentially cutting that are, veteran and productive pieces otherwise, I think that Doug Baldwin is one you do try to hold at the back end of your bench, because I do think that more so than Gronk or Marshawn Lynch, he could actually come back and land on a roster.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. EJ Manuel has retired. He will not be missed.
He will definitely not be missed.
Dwayne Bowe officially retired. He last played in 2015. He last played in 2015 for the Browns and had 5 catches.
You would have told oh man, maybe just one more year. God, just maybe one more year. I could sign on with the team and catch one pass.
Hasn't happened.
Hasn't happened in 4 years.
Signed a 1-day contract with the Chiefs. So you're forgiven if you thought he was already long retired, because I definitely did.
I mean, I just forgot about him.
And then defensive player, we don't normally shout them a whole lot of love. Same thing with linemen, but if they're great, they're great. Chris Long has officially hung it up. And not just for his on-field performance, but his humanitarian work. He got to go out with 2 rings, which couldn't happen to a seemingly better guy. He stuck with the Rams for all those years in purgatory, then got to go out and get his rings. And the last couple of years, donated more of his salary than he actually kept.
Yeah, he is the true poster child of just a good athlete and just a good person who's put into a good position to give back as much as he can.
He's entertaining too, so I hope he lands a broadcast or studio show or something someplace, because he would be a fun one.
Oh yeah, I agree.
All right, and I definitely have some laugh out loud stuff to talk about.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Laugh out loud news of the week.
All right, we got 2 here. The first one is the dumpster fire known as the New York Jets. They are an absolute mess, and it's kind of sad because when you look at their roster, they don't necessarily have a lot of holes and could, at least offensively, start to, turn the corner, especially if Darnold can take the next step. Defensively, not so much. But, they fired GM Mike McKagnon and VP of player personnel Brian Heimerdinger.
That's a great name.
It is a great name. That was following a reported rift with new head coach Adam Gase, who, is definitely worth firing the front office for.
Yes.
It's also being reported that Adam Gase absolutely did not want to sign Le'Veon Bell, which should make things nice and awkward. It's really said that Gase did not want to commit big money to a running back, which, not surprising, especially, the Bears, he inherited Forte, and everywhere else he's been, he's not committed to any running back at all. And Daniel Jeremiah of ESPN is also apparently under consideration for a front office job as they attempt to follow the absolutely proven, as in that hasn't even been under one season, blueprint of the Raiders by hiring front office personnel. A lot to unpack.
Yeah, right? I guess you got to try some new things, just see what happens. Fuck it, the team's already... I just feel bad for Jets fans, man. I really do.
I don't know that building around Adam Gase as your brain trust is necessarily... ask Miami how that worked. I don't
Right.
think that that's necessarily the way you want to go. His offense was dynamic when Peyton Manning was his quarterback. He was all right with Jay Cutler, but I mean, it didn't work out with Tannehill. Didn't work out in Miami really at all. He's got some serious personnel usage problems, and in New York, I get it. You weren't happy with what you got, but you're going out here and you got your head coach saying publicly that he didn't want to sign your key free agent acquisition. So
Yeah, like it just sounds like it's all about the money because he wasn't happy with the CJ Mosley signing too.
no, it was that also, and it was the money. But what are you gonna do? Sit on it? Unless he wanted to spread it in other places throughout the roster, which, I mean, on offense, I think they're okay. On defense, sure, I get that a bit, but you don't exactly have any key rookies though that you're gonna have to lock up either before they leave. You're just kind of solid.
Yep.
I mean, Robbie Anderson isn't gonna demand big money.
As he shouldn't.
No. So, just 2 cents there. And then we got a hype train, and it's the weirdest hype train ever. 9 News' Mike Kliss reports that Juwan Winfrey has a good chance at being, well, wait for it, he's Broncos wide receiver. The wide receiver 5.
Woo! Super production right there.
We've got hype going on about a possible wide receiver 5 in a Joe Flacco-led offense.
Oh, man.
Go out and get him right now. There is no way you will regret that decision. Trade for him if he was drafted. He probably wasn't. Just go roster him. That's the number 5 wide receiver in Denver's elite quarterback-led offense.
That's a gold mine. He's got all the talent in the world to be the number 5 receiver.
Mm-hmm.
A pretty below average receiving core.
All right. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. Let's do a draft recap.
Draft recap.
All right, as mentioned in the open, this was sent in from Derek Hubbard. A listener reached out to us over Facebook and said, hey, if you're busy, I don't mind, but would you mind doing this? I got with Dan about it. He said, absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and do it. He sent over his Dynasty League's rookie draft results, and we're going to go ahead and decompress and break it down and talk about what we liked, what we didn't like for each team. This should give some good insight in one last look at how we value the rookie class before we move on to other things. But also kind of the strategy that we look at when we draft, and you get full rosters this time to give us analysis instead of an in a vacuum rookie draft. It is a 12-team league, half-point PPR. Rosters are formatted 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, so not a ton of starting positions.
I'm assuming 1 tight end too.
1 tight end, yes. Sorry, I didn't write that down, but yes, single tight end. DST kicker, so pretty standard. And usually you'll see a 3rd wide receiver, a 2nd flex, but it's a pretty old school standard starting position. And we're going to go team by team, analyze the roster, point out weaknesses, and assess the draft based on trades and picks made. So, going to go ahead and start with Dak Street Boys. This was their champion last year. And when I look at this roster coming out of the gate, they look pretty solid at quarterback with Andrew Luck and Dak Prescott. Running back, I mean, they're okay. They've got Zeke. They've got a combo of Derrick Henry and Deion Lewis, who are both productive. It's a frustrating combination, but one of them is productive. Yeah. Rashad Penny, who flashed a bit, and then Jordan Howard, who is on our new team and could be something interesting. But they're absolutely stacked at wide receiver with Julio Jones, T.Y. Hilton, Corey Davis, Julian Edelman, Anthony Miller. So when you look at that, you've got 2 top 12 wide receivers with a big upside guy who's kind of toiling away in Tennessee, but saw over 100 targets last year. Julian Edelman, who came back and was very, very solid after his suspension ended. Anthony Miller, who's a guy we liked last year. Michael Gallup, who's a guy we liked a lot last year. Josh Gordon's on this roster if he ever plays again. And then Jake Kumaro, who we're also high on as a show.
Yep.
So when I looked at need for this team, I didn't really see a ton of it. Tight ends, Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron, Tyler Eifert. 3 rostered guys in a 1 tight end league with, by the way, it's 25-man rosters in season, 30 in off season. So I mean that's fine right now. Do you really see any holes in this roster when you look at it? Anything that just glares of this needs to be addressed to the draft?
They need another running back. You didn't mention Jalen Samuels, but he's also on this roster.
I did.
There is one quick advice before I dive into this. As Hopper mentioned a little bit earlier, you should probably add at least one more flex position, if not two. So just a quick question. That's just a quick shout out to the commissioner. This is actually his team. This is actually Derek's team.
Okay. Well,
so
cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I think adding another running back, especially because Jordan Howard's life cycle right now is coming to it, which it could be coming to an end with them drafting Miles Sanders out there in Philly. We're not high on Derrick Henry, but he could be a thing this year. Rashad Penny, though he hasn't really proven anything, and Samuels will always just be a one-trick pony there piece.
And that's kind of what I thought when I looked at this roster too, was that I would want a little bit more confidence in what I was running at running back too. I mean, you can absolutely probably find something productive every week out of Jordan Howard, Deion Lewis, Derrick Henry, and Rashad Penny. One of those four is likely going to be productive every week, but it's going to be frustrating trying to guess which one. And same thing can be said for tight ends with Doyle and Ebron, especially if both are healthy. So
yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, it's not a great future tight end core. I'd be looking to, we'll move on to the draft results here. 111, he took Paris Campbell. 207, he took Darrell Henderson. 208, Justice Hill. 311, Josh Oliver. 501, Bruce Anderson. He had a nice draft. I do agree with you that he should have probably taken Noah Fant with the 111 pick over Paris Campbell. I have Paris Campbell rated higher, but he has so many Colts on this roster.
That's exactly. I'm wondering if he's a Colts fan, because that's what I was gonna say too. I know that they're a good offense, but if Andrew Luck goes down for some reason, then not only do you lose Luck, but T.Y. Hilton just lost his value. Paris Campbell just lost his value, and so did Doyle and Ebron. So, I mean, you can look at it as, it's okay to have a couple players from the same team, but when you have their quarterback and then all of their pass catchers, there's a lot riding on Andrew Luck's health there for that particular team. And I put Noah Fant down just because of what I said, just futuristic tight end need, and just how frustrating that could be. The Darrell Henderson pick, I think, is good. It wasn't necessarily going to solidify anything for you, but the top three running backs that you can look at this year and really say, hey, these guys are going to be something, are going in the first 5 picks.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's a great pick, especially with where Todd Gurley kind of seems to be at.
Yep. Well, and I don't mind the double dart throw there at 207, 208. He did trade. He did trade to make that happen. So I thought that was a good move to take 2 dart throws on running backs and at least give yourself a chance to find something solid, because out of all those guys, somebody's going to hit. It's kind of the Nick Sparks philosophy of here's a bunch of dollar running backs and something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I really like that he did go out and he did, we say Noah Fant at 111, but I have no problem with 311 and addressing Josh Oliver as a future need landing in Jacksonville where nobody else is there with a quarterback that's tight end happy.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess for me, it's just, I don't know where Jacksonville is going to after, and let's say Nick Foles sucks, and then that's that, and then you don't know what Josh Oliver is going to be. We like Josh Oliver here to begin with, so still a fine pick. His trade I absolutely loved though.
I did too.
He traded the 219. He traded for the 207 and 208 this year. He gave up the 404 and the 504 this year. His second in the 21st and 2022 draft. So, I mean,
you punt that down the road and figure it out later. This is a team that's going to contend for a championship, and he knows it. So, he's the defending champion. He's going to contend again. So you just go punt those second round picks out to, and say, here's a couple from drafts 2 years from now, and you get to try to figure out how to recoup that. I completely agree with what you're saying about Josh Oliver. Just because Noah Fant seems to be more of a sure thing in an equally tight end happy offense that has a ton more upside and could be that truly elite tight end, whereas I think Oliver is going to be probably Chris Herndon levels of solid right now.
You're hoping.
You're hoping at best. And then, but again, with Doyle and Ebron, if that doesn't end up being as frustrating as we think, or if Eifert has a bounce back, you still can run a starting tight end out. And then I like Bruce Anderson at the 501 too. It's a 5th round pick on Tampa's team. who's a guy that had good rookie tape to me, and not rookie tape, sorry, college tape to me, but I don't believe in Peyton Barber, and Ronald Jones hasn't shown us anything either. So, I mean, for a 5th-round pick, that's all dart throws, and I think that's a fine dart throw.
Yes.
Also at running back, which was a position of need. So, if I were going to grade this, I would give it an A-.
I go B+. Just
the only thing I could potentially fault is the Paris Gamble pick at the end of the draft, just because of the number of Colts on this roster and because I think that Noah Fant would have been a better move. That's the only thing I can fault here.
It just depends, because it looks like Noah Fant, he went one pick afterwards, so I guess I guess it is what it is. It depends how far Paris Campbell would have fell.
Right.
But that's fine.
I don't think you could have gotten.
Minus is not, it's still a very good draft.
Well, I don't think you could have gotten Campbell. I just don't think he needed him with the depth that's already at wide receiver.
No.
It was not. I don't think that was a need-based pick. And as you'll hear from me going through this, I'm definitely a need-based drafter over best available.
Yeah. I ranked him second on my power rankings.
Sweet. All right, moving on. Team Mighty Midgets. So, this person had one pick, if I looked at it right.
I love this. He's my number one ranked guy. Outside of quarterback, I absolutely love his roster. At least right now.
I do too. Tight end's slightly concerning just because, OJ Howard, Cameron Brate's still a thing, even though Howard looked to completely dominate that. But Mark Andrews looks like he's going to be the guy holding on to Gronk. But you went out and got Debo when the one thing you needed was a wide receiver. The one thing I looked at this roster and said you need is a wide receiver, and you went out and you got a wide receiver. So, good job there.
He doesn't absolutely need one. I mean, Debo is his 6 on this roster. We'll run through it real quick. QB Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson.
That's
team backs.
That's fine. You're going to get some rushing floor from that. So, you're okay there.
Yeah. Running backs, Barkley, David Johnson, Leonard Fournette, Gio Bernard, Alfred Brew, and Chase Edmonds. Love his running back core there.
Especially if Johnson can have a bounce back in this offense like we think you will. You've got you're going to win a bunch of games off of Saquon and David Johnson potentially and be able to put Fournette in your flex.
Yeah, and this is why I still love his roster, because you have 3 started running backs and you only start 3 at this point. Receivers, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, Kiki Kuti, Will Fuller, Devin Funchess, Tyler Lockett, Jamon Moore, Devonta Parker, Tajay Sharp, Traquan Smith, Sutton, ESB. Very solid receiving core up and down.
The depth there is what bothered me about that, because I'm not big on Funchess, first off. That's well known, even though I think he'll catch a ton of touchdowns. You've got 2 of the potential 3 Packers wide receivers who could take over. That's fine. Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper is a very good one too. It's when you get behind that I start to have concerns. But again, that's why I like the Debo pick, because when you get behind that, you don't have a lot of depth per se. Coutie's flash. Fuller can't stay healthy, but he's been decent when he is. Lockett's going to have a chance to take over for Baldwin and potentially be that third guy for you. But you're just adding another guy to the mix that's a high upside guy that could potentially be something just like Cortland Sutton, just like Traquan Smith. So that's why I like that pick, because you don't necessarily have anything that I can look at and say, well, this is super solid outside of Adams, Cooper, and potentially Lockett, but you've got a bunch of potential for somebody to become that.
Exactly. Speaking of tight ends, Mark Andrews, Gronk, and OJ Howard, as we just mentioned earlier. Nice, solid core. He traded his 2022nd and 2023rd for that 206. I wouldn't have made that trade. As much as I like Deebo Samuels, you can only start 3 receivers. And at this point, you're only going to start 2 of them because you already have your 3 flex spots filled up. It's going to be Adams and Cooper nearly every week. Will Fuller is fine. Kuti is fine. So I would have waited, use that maybe for a little bit more running back depth, just in case if Fournette struggles with health and the Cardinals offense can't get it together.
Are you talking about next year though? Because he didn't. Or are you saying you'd still make that trade and use the 206 because he didn't have a pick this draft without making that trade?
I wouldn't made that pick, or I wouldn't have traded future assets.
You would have punted it to have the 2nd and 3rd next year.
Yeah, I'm saying that 2022 is going to likely be probably better than the 2020 and then his 206. But that's because Deebo Samuels fell, which is still great value, so still a good pick. I just wouldn't have made that trade just based on his roster.
I wouldn't have either, but then again, we're also looking at it in a vacuum. We don't know if maybe
that's true.
The fact that he had no picks this year meant he had extra seconds and thirds next year. That changes my feeling on that trade if there were extras there as well. So I just want to put that in as a caveat that we don't have any insight into what the future pick landscape looks like. So if he did have extras, then I'm more okay with that trade.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, the next one that I believe Caden's Killers is the first team I looked at and just got pissed off, I think. No.
Yeah, he's my sixth ranked. I did these ranked really much in a vacuum, so they're not going to be completely right. But
so I'm going to see if I can remember why this made me mad or if I was just frustrated. So quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Phillip Rivers. I don't necessarily advocate keeping 3 starters in a single quarterback league. Maybe development prospect. That could have been what Allen was last year. So, yeah. I mean, I'm fine with it, but my big issue with, that's why it pissed me off. It was kind of the running back situation and kind of the wide receiver situation. So at running back, we got Darius Geis, who hasn't shown anything in the NFL, even though he's highly talented. He has not played it down. Justin Jackson, who we liked. Aaron Jones, who we have no idea how he's going to be used with the new offensive coordinator in town, even though he's been decent. LaShawn McCoy, who's a shell of his former self. Sonny Michel, who they go out and draft Damian Harris, who, by the way, I thought was super undervalued in this draft.
Oh, hell yeah.
For the draft capital they put into him, that's an indictment on Sonny Michel. And then Ito Smith. So I don't think that there's a true solid answer at running back, which is why passing twice on Miles Sanders I thought was kind of a bold move and not necessarily one I would have made.
I mean, looking at his roster, I see why. I wouldn't have done it completely, but I see why he did it. He, for those at home, he took N'Keal Harry at the 103 and DK Metcalf at the 105s. Sanders went at the 106.
But my thought is, though, is that if you got the 103 and 105 and you can make that pick and you have a need at wide receiver and running back, fill both of those needs, especially with the running back that is one of them that we're pretty certain is going to produce. Like, why would you make the decision to not fill both needs, I guess is where I come from. Because, I mean, the wide receiver core, we got to talk about that. The wide receiver core is Allen Robinson, Nelson Aguilar, John Brown, Larry Fitz, Ted Ginn, Chester Rogers, John Ross, Emmanuel Sanders, Willie Snead, Tyrell Williams. There is nothing there that says you have a top 12 wide receiver.
This is why that he freaked out. Like, this is why I think he made those 2 picks, is that he freaked out. I need 2 home run hits. This isn't a bad roster.
It's not
a great roster. It's got good starters, very little. It's got some average to good starters, absolutely no depth behind anybody outside of quarterback. And that's where I'm mainly concerned is why not draft running back receiver there?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I think I would have made the move to go either N'Keal and Sanders or Metcalf and Sanders and not both, because then you're getting potential top flight wide receiver at least down the road, and then you've got plenty of dart throws on that roster that can come up and be a 2. We know Sanders is solid.
Yeah.
But in the second round at 203 took Andy Isabella.
Yeah.
I just think it was a gross overreaction to not having a top end wide receiver. I think that you still take Andy Isabella at the 203 and you just sub one of those first round picks for Miles Sanders, and I like it a whole lot more given this.
And
he
could have, he got bailed out with taking Damian Harris at the 306. He took Irv Smith at the 210. So the draft itself, without looking at rosters, would have been okay.
That's what I was going to say also. In a vacuum, I like this a lot more than looking at how it unfolded because Damian Harris fell.
Yeah, that's great value. You get the handcuff from Sonny Michel. It's going to be a nightmare to own, I think, at times when they're both healthy or when they're both active. But I also like backing up his Irv Smith pick with his starters and Jared Cook and Evan Ingram. I think those are 2. That's a solid tight end core,
especially with Cook being older.
Yeah, especially that what should be a decent offense for him to produce in, and with Evan Ingram, if he can continue to grow as a top
Yeah.
3 target in a Giants offense.
Yeah, I hated it a lot less the second time through.
I still don't like it as. I mean, it's okay. It's a okay.
If I'm putting a letter
For some
grade,
teams.
I didn't do this for the second one. So going back to the last team, if I'm putting a letter grade on that, I'd give it a solid C with the Debo pick, by the way, but just because you have one pick, I can't really say I love it. For this team, probably a C plus because you're good at wide receiver for a while now. You took care of that, and the bailout on Damian, you should be anyway. You did your draft to be good at wide receiver for a while. Let's put it that way.
Yes, I agree with that.
Damian Harris falling to you completely bailed you out. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I gave him a B minus. He's probably we don't get to see what their draft picks are for the future. I'm assuming he's going to address the running back position next year, which should be a lot more solid and with a lot more depth. But he doesn't get a high B or an A for me because of what he missed early on with Miles Sanders.
And that's exactly what it is for me, too, because of the upside there. Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't his that ticked me off the first one. It was this next one that ticked me off more than it was. Sorry,
yes.
Caden. It was not yours that pissed me off. It was Powerhouse that pissed me off. All right. So, first problem that I see with this team. 4 quarterbacks. In a single quarterback league, there are 4 quarterbacks rostered. Tom Brady, Jameis Winston, Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater. Cut Teddy because he has no value in this format.
Yeah.
And cut Case because he has no value in this format. And go out and pick up a guy that's not a journeyman, that is a development prospect. Brady's not going to retire anytime soon. Jameis will be fine. And I mean, Andy Dalton was floating around on waivers in this league. I would drop Case and Teddy and pick up Dalton in a heartbeat. I mean, not anymore because he got drafted, but you get it.
I'm okay with him keeping Teddy
I would cut.
For whatever reason, if he wants to keep a third quarterback,
I would keep Teddy over Case.
Next year. So
I would keep Teddy over Case just because we know Case is just
be rostered in this
journeyman.
Yeah, he should drop him.
So I didn't like that. Running back, we're looking at Nick Chubb, Todd Gurley, Corey Clement, Marshawn Lynch, Doug Martin, Chris Thompson. Gurley, you couldn't predict the arthritis thing. He'll be fine, I think. Nick Chubb, also good. I think you got a solid 1-2 punch there at running back. Marshawn Lynch, Doug Martin. Lynch isn't going to come back. He's probably cuttable, but Doug Martin should be at least in contention with Josh Jacobs and Chris Thompson. I mean, I think your 1-2 is good. Probably need a little bit of depth at running back as we look at what we're looking for in the draft here. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, easily. And just with what he passed up there in the first couple of rounds, it's going to come back to likely haunt him, especially having Todd Gurley. I would have made a move to get Darrell Henderson.
Yep. Looking at wide receivers, Mike Evans, A.J. Green, Antonio Callaway, Quincy Enunwa, Allen Hurns, Zay Jones, Demaryius Thomas. Top 2 are really good. Antonio Callaway is a nice prospect. I still think there's more depth needed there as well, and this is why you don't roster 4 quarterbacks or 4 tight ends in single quarterback and single tight end league, as well as 2 kickers and 3 defenses.
This is like looking at Sean's roster in my
right. So
in my Dynasty league.
2 defenses I'm fine with this roster depth. I actually have that in your league, Dan, with very similar roster depth. 2 defenses I'm fine with. 3 quarterbacks I'm fine with. 3 to 4 tight ends I'm fine with, depending on your roster structure. But when you don't have depth at running back or wide receiver, you've got to open up some of those roster spots to get depth. And I don't know why you're
tradable pieces too here. Zach Ertz, Njoku, Ian Thomas, and Cameron Brate. Brate's probably not worth a whole lot, so you probably hold them. But
the other 3 are
Njoku, who hasn't flashed at all. Zach Ertz, you can sell the farm for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Robbie Gould and Will Lutz at kicker. Okay.
Sure.
There was a 5th round trade. I'm not going to talk about that. But then the draft really kind of bothered me too. Mecole Hardman at the 109 when you've got Hollywood Brown, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, A.J. Brown, Andy Isabella, Deebo Samuel.
And Paris Campbell.
To
see the guys that actually fell. We're not high on Mecole here. We're not a Miko Hardman pro podcast. So.
He's not Tyreek Hill. And he's not even with Tyreek Hill out, he's not going to be Tyreek Hill. I mean, it's Sammy Watkins, and who knows? And I think I get what you're trying to do here, but we've just kind of been of the opinion the whole time Hardman isn't it. And
especially when you're passing up on guys,
those other guys that we just listed,
who could produce it right away, and more so than the fact. I mean, the Colts offense may not look like the Chiefs here right now, but it can be just as very much prolific as we've seen. So,
yep. Well,
to pass up on Paris Campbell for that is.
I mean, look, all of those guys have. Mecole Hardman probably has a clearer path to target than the other guys. All of those other guys have much, much higher upside, especially long term. And then going Rodney Anderson at the 209 when Damian Harris was still on the board, I didn't like that pick at all. Same thing with I'm a Travion Williams over Rodney Anderson because of the fit right now. Dan, I know you're the other way. Anderson at the 209, though. I mean, I personally think Anderson should be about a round lower, just given the injury history and the fact that he's competing for an RB3 spot.
Yeah, like you need a running back that can produce tier one just because of the unknown, and especially the unknown at your flex position. There's going to be a lot of different guys floating in and out of that, and Harris could be just as productive as any of the other guys in your roster.
Yep. Now, the next pick made me throw my keyboard.
No.
Daniel Jones at the 303 is the biggest what the fuck I had the entire time when I was reading this because, again, you've got 4 quarterbacks rostered, and you went out and drafted a 5th in one quarterback. You don't do that in one quarterback. You do not roster that many quarterbacks in one quarterback. And Daniel Jones over Drew Lock is also not something I agree with. I get it. There's draft capital there. And, you've got an older Tom Brady. And Jameis Winston, we're high on. Well, I'm high on Jameis, but you're good this year with that, and you've got Teddy. So I mean, if you draft Daniel Jones and you cut Keenum and Bridgewater, then I'm fine with it. But otherwise, I don't like it, and especially when you look at some of the other people that were on the board with Miles Boykin, Jalen Hurd, Drew Lock, Damian Harris, Josh Oliver.
Yeah, there's no defending. He may be a Giants fan. I guess that's the only defense you can put here. And he had to own one of the shittiest quarterbacks I've watched in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like at least at the hype that he got. It's I don't know if it's the worst pick because at least it's still a 3rd round pick. There's still one more pick that
there's one more pick for single.
There's one more pick in the 1st round that I just cried.
Yeah, and if it's what I'm thinking of, we'll get to that in a bit.
It is.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Raquel Armstead at 309. Fine. You still had Alexander Madison and Kelvin Harmon there, which I think would have fit needs for you, and would have been a bit better. But I guess if you don't believe in Leonard Fournette, then you're okay there. Raquel Armstead's tape was terrible, but it's the end of the 3rd round, so dart throw. The DeMarcus Robinson in the 5th, sure, you got a veteran who'd flash something. So
there's the wide receiver 2 for your Chiefs right there.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. I was not. You're asking me to grade this, probably a solid D.
It's a D. It might be a D minus. I understand where he was going with it. It's just the execution.
Yeah, I get
sad thing. He's my 5th ranked in my power rankings. Because I like his starters.
You're not ranking on the draft. You're ranking on the overall roster. I got it.
Yeah, I'm just doing a quick. Yeah, I just did a quick power ranking. So yeah, like he's my 5th ranked roster. This will likely be one of the worst, if not the worst, draft in this thing. Yeah,
I don't see a whole lot of good coming out of that. No. All right. Next up, we have Catfishing Manti Te'o.
A great name.
Great name.
Not a good roster. Great name though.
Let's talk about the roster. Quarterback, I'm okay with Matt Ryan, Mitch Trubisky. Tyrod Taylor, I think, is expendable for a development piece, which you drafted one, so that's fine. Cut Tyrod, and you're good there, in my opinion.
Exactly. I agree.
The running back needs, I guess, work. Dalvin, and again, you address that. So Dalvin Cook, Kalen Ballage, Kenneth Dixon, Jerick McKinnon, Latavius Murray, TJ Yeldon. Cook, we like. Balaj, I don't like. Dixon, Dan doesn't like. McKinnon, we've talked about him at length on the show. And the thought is that they didn't go out and pay him a bunch of money to tear his ACL and to never see him on the field. He'll get a chance. Latavius Murray in New Orleans, we absolutely love. You can find 2 starters out of that, more or
and
less.
TJ Yeldon, which I like a lot more than Devin Singletary out there in Buffalo. So
Yep.
It's not the world's worst running back core. I look at this roster just up and down with the fact that he lost Tyreek Hill. Spoiler alert, he has Tyreek Hill. This could be a blow 'em up roster.
The wide receivers are the worst, or the bad, or the only thing I look at here and think it's bad.
Well, running backs I don't love, but yes, wide receivers are a shit show.
I like it more after the draft. I mean, running backs
I'll give them that.
are young or in new locations, but I think there's a lot of potential there. The wide receiver, I am huge on Cooper Kupp. I think James Washington's going to have opportunity in Pittsburgh. I think he's better than Deontay Johnson, as much as that pains me to say. Tyreek Hill, you're going to lose him for at least part of the season, if not the whole season. God knows if he'll play again after the shit he's done. Beyond that, get ready for these names, Dan. Chad Beebe.
Minnesota.
Braxton Berrios. Don't even know. He's still in New England? I don't know where he is anymore.
Maybe.
Keelan Cole.
I like
that. That's fine. Taylor Gabriel. I don't think the Bears are happy with Gabriel, given all the other speed that they've tried to pack on this roster.
He might get cut.
Mohamed Sanu, which is he's lost his job essentially to Calvin Ridley, and Taywan Taylor, who's also pretty much lost his job with the drafting of A.J. Brown. Tight ends I like. Trey Burton and George Kittle, you're good there. Couple trades too.
Yeah.
So he did trade away the 206 for a 2022nd, 2023. I think that's a good one for him.
Yep. That's a Deebo Samuel trade from previous.
Yep. He also gave up a 2019 207 and 208 to receive the 404, 504, 2021 second, 2022 second. So future asset.
So one good trade, one bad trade. His second trade is with Darren, the Dak Street Boys guy.
Yep.
Or the guy who sent this in for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
one good trade, one bad trade.
Yep. I think future assets, you're fine, though, with doing that. And when I look at the draft, overall, I kind of like this. You draft David Montgomery at the 102. Completely fine with that pick. We've debated David Montgomery and Miles Sanders back and forth on the show. You can really go either way there.
It's a fine pick.
It's a perfectly fine pick, and it addresses a need at running back. You throw David Montgomery into that mix with Cook, McKinnon, Murray, Yeldon, you're going to get 2 starters. You're fine. Yeah. Hunter Renfrow, I looked at that and wanted to say I didn't like it, but with it being the early 3rd round, him pretty much having the inside track at the Raiders slot receiver job, and really the only 2 guys I could find I liked more being Jalen Hurd and Kelvin Harmon from a wide receiver perspective. It's hard for me to say that I completely hate that pick, as ugly as it feels.
You also pass up on Damian Harris, but a lot of people pass up on Harris. It's that 3rd round. You just take who you want. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not pretty, but it's fine.
A lot of people did, but I like it from a balance standpoint too, because that was his second pick in this draft, and he spent it on a wide receiver, which was the other position in need.
Yeah.
Drew Lock at the 404. Again, I like that. Cut Tyrod Taylor. You're good. I think that's a good development pick. Kahale Waring.
Love that pick.
We're high on. I love it too. I mean, Trey Burton and George Kittle, you should be okay with for a while, but if anything, you're drafting a tradable asset in the 5th round. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nope. Preston Williams is another wide receiver that came in with a ton of upside, even though the draft capital wasn't there, and he didn't necessarily make my hype train, but I know that there were people that were high on Preston Williams, so that's okay.
I look at this roster, like I mentioned earlier, it's you're at a point where you could blow it up. You have a lot of tradable pieces. You don't have to, but I don't see this roster competing against some of the more stacked guys.
It'll be a playoff team.
I think it would compete. He'll need some receivers to step up. Like he can only start up to 3 running backs. So we can't just flood starting rosters with that. Trey Burton, we haven't seen much of. We've seen him flash, kind of, but
I think that you could maneuver this a little bit, though. Trade away one of those running backs and get yourself a solid wide receiver back. And
it's one of those. Oh yeah, like it's one of those scenes where you have to just
You've
You
got
have to ask yourself if you want to be middling, which I think this roster is.
I agree with that. The part I disagree with is that it's got to be blown up completely. I think,
Well, that's true.
especially
It
if you
doesn't
have
have
draft
to be,
picks, that you can maneuver to make this better, given and build it around the pieces that you have there. I don't think you have to blow this up and start over. I think you trade away from depth at running back and potentially even quarterback, and tight end for that matter, and try to get yourself at least a couple other wide receiver 2-3 type guys that can at least be solid at that position. And I think that you can make a run at it through maybe not necessarily having high-end guys, but having guys that are going to give you solid week-in, week-out performances up and down the roster.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I agree with you right now. It's middling. I just think that the way to make it compatible is you can maneuver. I don't think you have to blow it up.
Yeah, he's my 11th in the power rankings just because of that receiving core. And
yeah, which that receiving core you're looking at in a completely different light if Tyreek Hill isn't at 88. So
yeah.
Unfortunately, that's something you can't really see coming.
And up next is the worst roster in this league.
Yeah, and the draft was just okay here. By the way, if I'm putting a grade on that last draft, I would give it. I'd call it an A-. Doing what you can with what you got, basically. I thought that probably should have kept some of those second-round picks. That's going to drop it to a B for me because I think you should have kept the second-round pick and used it.
Yeah.
But
he had 3 of them.
Yeah. Kept
he traded all of his second-round picks away.
Should have tried to keep at least one of those. But I like what you did with the picks that you had.
I gave it a C+. It's okay. It's above average, but I think trading away your second rounders is at least not keeping 1 or 2, even though you are getting future assets. Especially for what you passed up with those picks, that could have really helped your roster now.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel at the 206 would have been real nice for you.
I mean, Deebo, mostly pissed up on
Butler,
Anderson, and Justice Hill were the 3 guys that were taken in those spots. All 3 of them I have a lot higher grades on than where they're drafted.
I think Hakeem Butler was taken in there too. Andy Isabella was taken somewhere around there. So maybe beforehand. I don't have the results in front of me, but you get it.
You were before, yeah. I got him up.
All right, Wigster 14. This is not a great roster.
This one, he needs to blow up.
This does need to be blown up. Quarterback,
pretty bad.
Kirk Cousins, Eli Manning, Josh Rosen. You're looking at that in a vacuum. You're probably okay with it. Cousins is going to be a top 12 guy. Manning and Rosen fighting out for a backup spot. Sure.
You're going to have to be okay with it because,
you're not trading either of them right now. Peyton Barber, Gus Edwards, Austin Eckler, Phillip Lindsay, Marlon Mack, Deontay Foreman, Spencer Ware. Severe lack of depth or severe lack of top-end talent at running back.
Severe lack of everything. Besides Mack and Lindsay.
Mack, Lindsay.
And Foreman, I don't hate, but...
I don't hate Foreman's upside. Mack and Lindsay you're much happier with if they're your 2, not your 1. Edwards and Barber are nice depth pieces to have given last year's performance, but they're not guys I want to rely on. Wide receiver, not in love with that either. Antonio Brown, Des Bryant, Robbie Anderson, Marvin Jones, Mike Williams, Jameson Crowder. Des Bryant, don't know why that's rostered, honestly.
He hasn't retired yet. I think he's still on New Orleans. I don't think he ever got cut.
I don't think he did either, but coming back from an Achilles, we'll see.
You'll hold them and maybe
you IR him if you can, which is probably what happened last year. He said that they reduced to no IR, but they also expand rosters in the offseason, so you're fine there. Antonio Brown, wide receiver 1, great. Robbie Anderson, wide receiver 2, fine. Marvin Jones, wide receiver 3. Mike Williams, Jamison Crowder in a new offense. I don't hate that wide receiver core. I think you need to add some depth to it and some development pieces to it, but overall, I think you can probably pretty easily start 2, potentially 3 out of that every week.
You're going to have to start 3 out of that. Like, only reason, it's a good receiving core if you're on an offense or on a team that's got great running backs, tight ends, and quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's not a fit for where his roster is right now. That's why you got to start making some choices.
Yep. Tight end, Jimmy Graham, Jordan Reed, Vernon Davis, ASJ. The Reed-Davis handcuff is not sexy anymore. ASJ going to New England. We've all wanted ASJ to be a thing. He's going to have another chance to do it. I'm fine with that. Jimmy Graham in Green Bay kind of fell flat. So looking at this going in pre-draft, you definitely need a development tight end.
And you got one.
And you got one. You did. So there was one trade made. He gave up the 311, which turned into Josh Oliver. He ended up getting back Jamal Williams in a 2019 405. So, again, it adds another piece to that running back depth chart. And that's all I can really say that's good about that.
I mean, he drafted Jace at the 211, so I understand not if you wanted to pass up on that third-round pick. I would have tried to get a 2020 pick instead of the 19405, but
yeah,
that's fine.
Yep, 19405 though, Jamal.
Which ended up being a decent pick for him at that. So I mean,
it did.
He didn't have a bad draft based on where he drafted.
Not a bad draft. It's just the overall roster is a little rough, but the start to fixing that is drafting well. Jay Sternberger. The only other thing I thought that could have helped you here was Damian Harris. Again, criminally underrated in this draft.
Yeah, he was.
Sternberger's a fine pick. He's not going to help you this year, but he's a good development piece, especially since I don't expect Jimmy Graham to be there after this year, and you're not competing this year anyway. Miles Boykin, I thought was a fine dart throw in the fourth. Alexander Madison, we've talked about him at length here. I like Alexander Madison a decent amount. He should fill the Latavius Murray role. I think that he's a little bit more closer to Murray than Mike Boone or Rock Thomas is. I mean, he'll be at least in contention for it, so getting him in the back into the fourth is completely fine.
It's a value pick.
Jarrett Stidham makes no sense to me in a one-quarterback league, especially not when you have Rosen's a much better development piece than Stidham. Manning is still a starter at this point, so you want him to be on your roster as a backup, and you don't want to roster 4 quarterbacks. We do this song and dance every time the Patriots draft a quarterback, but it's just seemingly every year, or we've forgotten about Danny Etling last year, where you think that that's the heir apparent, and they're just spending mid-round picks on quarterbacks. They'll bring in Stidham. He might develop into a backup. They'll see what they have, but I do not think that Jarrett Stidham is worth rostering in a one-quarterback league.
They drafted him for the sole purpose that they can trade him for a second-round pick in the future. That's the Patriots.
The Patriots. You're not going to trade him for a second.
Not going to get him for anything.
So I mean, when you don't have depth at the running back position, or the wide receiver position, I mean, you should have just tried to take a dart throw on somebody, because there's somebody every year that seems to break out that's not on anybody's radar. You should have tried to make that happen,
especially for running back, and for this roster where these lower picks may not seem very valuable. If they hit, especially if Cook goes down and Madison comes in, blows up, trade him for a first-round pick next year maybe, or a high 2022nd. So there's always value to these picks. There's no value to a single quarterback, to a quarterback in a single quarterback league. There's no value outside of the top 5.
No, there's not.
So I give his draft. I give it a C-.
Okay, yeah, I'll give it a C- with you as well. I agree with that, because I think I like Sternberger, Boykin, Madison for where you drafted. I didn't like the trade, and I don't like
high
Stidham.
Draft picks for it to look sexy,
right?
And a team that's clearly the worst roster in this league, and it's only 12 teams. I think trading up or just selling the farm for 2020s would have been my ideal choice. Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's review some beer.
Beer review.
All right, Dan, what did you think of Vanilla Space Crystals?
I've had this 3 or 4 times, and it's one of my favorite milkshake IPAs. The Space Crystals themselves as just a non-variant of the vanilla one. It's incredible with the citra hops. The vanilla and milk sugar really add that sweetness to it. I don't have the alcohol content because Beaver is just too new of a brewery. They don't put that on their cans. It's a very well-crafted, well done. Super juicy as a milkshake style IPA would be, with the sweetness that I'm looking for on the back end.
Yep. And I was drinking Danger Zone, which is a home brew from a friend of mine, specifically for my wedding, but will eventually be going under the name of Dive Bomb Brewing when they get it off the ground. It's a hazy style IPA. It definitely has haze to it. Ton of citra up front. I mean, this thing it's juicy and it's citrusy for sure. The bittering hops that he used in it really does come out about midway through and kind of lingers on the tongue there. There's not a strong alcohol content. The finish is very, very smooth. Very, very solid beer, especially for what I believe was his first take on a hazy. So, Dan, you got to try it at the wedding. I think I'm glad I have a case of it. Let's put it that way.
It's a very, very solid hazy. Citra, I believe you used Citra El Dorado. And then I forgot what
it was. Citra Galaxy and something else.
It was Citra Galaxy El Dorado.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was Eldo. It was something. I
believe
remember.
that's what he told me. But either way, the Citra is a dual purpose hop in this purpose. That's where you're getting the the bitterness from.
Yep.
Galaxy is one of my favorite hops, so it's a very well crafted beer. So shout out to Brett for that.
Yes, and again, I thank you for gifting that to us as a wedding present and brewing that especially for us. That was really, really cool. So thank you for that. Let's get back to the draft. We got another 6 teams to go. We're going to start with Billy Bashers. So this is another team that I looked at and is pretty middling. As I just look over the roster, I'm not going to go through the full breakdown as we try to pick up for time here. The biggest needs I saw that needed to be addressed in this draft were running back. Because behind Christian McCaffrey, there was only Chris Carson, Ronald Jones, Mike Davis. That's not a ton of depth.
2 Seattle X1s. Yeah.
Yeah. Davis with the Bears, with them drafting David Montgomery, I don't think is a lock for any form of productivity at all. Chris Carson has the Seattle job, but if he struggles at all, then Rashad Penny is going to be breathing down his neck. Ronald Jones hasn't shown it yet, so I think that needs to be addressed. You look at the wide receiver core. I thought that there could have been, it's all right. I mean, you're 4 to 5 solid there, so I think you're pretty good. You don't have you kind of do. Juju Smith-Schuster qualifies as a wide receiver 1, so you're good there. You get behind that, Alshon Jeffrey, Kenny Golladay, Golden Tate, Robert Woods, all very, very solid pieces.
Yep.
And then looking at tight end, I also see a bit of a need there with Austin Hooper, Hayden Hurst, Dan Arnold. Hooper did have a breakout into a tight end 1 year last year, but for every tight end 1, that comes with an asterisk because after the first, I think 3, they were all just super grouped together. So
yeah, it's not the worst one. He's my 7th ranked in my in this league's roster power rankings. The lack of tight end depth is going to hurt him. You don't need to roster Dan Arnold. You can get rid of him. Hayden Hurst is, again,
very fringe on whether he should be rostered or not.
Yeah, he needs running back. He did address that at least in length, drafting 3 running backs in his draft. So I'm fine with that. Josh Jacobs for the 101. So that's fine. He still needs depth there. I love Bryce Love at the 401.
I think that
it's a fine draft for what he needs.
I could disagree with that to a degree. He addressed one need, and there are 2 glaring needs here, and that's where I take issue with it.
You didn't draft tight end. No, I would have,
especially in a very, very deep tight end draft where you could have gotten Kahale Waring or not Josh Oliver because he went through 11, but Dawson Knox was still there. You had the chance at the 201 to maybe go, maybe move back to try to position yourself for Sternberger versus taking Arcega Whiteside, which is easily your best position. I mean, there's just, you probably needed to find a way to get another tight end on this roster and replace at least Dan Arnold or potentially Hayden Hurst with all the tight end depth that's in this draft. I think that's a missed opportunity. I love Josh Jacobs at the 101 to address a need there. Chris Carson is fine if it takes Jacobs a while to get his feet under him. There's also some upside to Ronald Jones. But I think you're absolutely right to spend your first pick on a running back and try to get yourself some depth behind really CMC and then Chris Carson. So I like the Jacobs pick. I like Bryce Love coming in and Travion Williams coming in as upside, especially in the 4th round to try to solidify that. The Arcega Whiteside pick is the one that I didn't think was necessarily needed, and I don't even think he was the best wide receiver on the board with A.J. Brown still hanging out.
It would have been. I mean, no, I have Brown ranked higher. I believe so do you. He did one trade that's worth benching, and he gave up the 212 this year for a 2020 third and 2021 second. I'm okay with that.
2 trades,
I
yeah.
don't know what he did after. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
5th rounders, but that doesn't count.
I don't give a shit about 5th round.
No. And I wouldn't have given up that 212, honestly. I mean, you could have still taken Arcega-Whiteside, kept the 212, and filled your tight end need pretty easily there.
So we don't know if he did afterwards because I don't think Dawson. Oh no, he was drafted. Never mind. So yeah, he needed tight end. I would have traded back from the 201 if I could.
I would have traded back from the 201 and tried to get Sternberger.
I mean,
and
then in that case, see if he wants to pay it for the 101, and then try to get a Hawk or a Fant in the mid to back first round.
Yeah, well, I don't think taking Jacobs at 101 is wrong. I look at that 201.
No, it's
though.
not wrong. I'm just saying.
I look at the 201 though, and I think that's the one you should have tried to maneuver to get yourself a tight end.
Yeah.
One of the top 4, or even if you didn't, who wasn't drafted in this draft that I looked at, and you could have used that 509 pick that you skipped on, Caleb Wilson in Arizona.
Hopefully you picked him up. Maybe he had too much roster spots. I don't know.
I don't know.
I would never skip draft picks if I don't have to.
That's exactly where I'm at with this too. I would not skip draft picks, and it doesn't look like there's too much roster there. But even if there is, drop Dan Arnold. He's useless. I would absolutely not have skipped that 509 pick with needing a tight end. Take a dart throw at how deep this class is. I mean, like I said, I'm sure I could look and find a few more that weren't taken, but the one that really sticks out to me that wasn't taken was Caleb Wilson. Who's not going to be, it was Mr. Irrelevant, but he's not going to be irrelevant in that offense with athletic and as much of a move tight end as he is. So, yeah, I just think that I don't ever agree with skipping draft picks, and I do think that there should have been a tight end taken here, given just Austin Hooper and then essentially nothing for the most part. So that's where I'm at with this. If I look at the overall
what do you rank his draft?
C-. I like that he addressed one of his 2 needs. I think the Arcega-Whiteside pick could have been handled better. I think he should have taken a tight end, but I like what he did to address the running back position. So it's just the fact that you have picks and you only address one need that makes me consider it a bit below average.
Yeah, I give him right around the C- range too.
All right, moving on to Gridiron Gang. This is another one that had me infuriated for a bit.
Yes, yeah, he's up there.
And the roster is not great,
No,
to be honest. One quarterback, and you literally have one quarterback. Now, granted, that got addressed, but how do you... Again, it baffles me that Andy Dalton was there to be drafted and isn't rostered, and you got a team in this league that doesn't have a backup quarterback. He actually drafted
Andy Dalton, though.
Oh, he did? Good.
He did draft Andy Dalton.
That's what I meant when... Yeah, Dwayne Haskins, too. So, I mean, I thought that that was fine, but when I looked at it pre-draft, having one quarterback was a big what the fuck. Because I looked at these in order of draft and then trades and then what you drafted. So my emotions are a roller coaster. If I say I looked at your team and thought what the fuck because of what you had rostered, that's before I saw your draft.
That's fair.
Jimmy Garoppolo being your only rostered quarterback coming off an ACL tear when he didn't necessarily look that great before he tore it is a red flag to me.
Yeah.
Running backs, there's literally Kerryon Johnson that can't stay healthy. Damian Williams, who I think was only good because of the Chiefs' O-line. Tevin Coleman, who is now thrown into a cluster in San Francisco. Duke Johnson, Darrell Williams. I mean, you got nothing there you can rely on as a running back one.
No, this is another team where I got to start making some pretty crucial decisions here.
This is the one I think that you need to blow up.
Between this one and Wixter's, like these two, I'm okay with not blowing it up entirely because you can get some pieces back for Odell.
Chris Godwin, probably too. Adam Humphries, Christian Kirk, Dante Pettis, Sammy Watkins. You got wide receivers. You don't even have to trade all the wide receivers.
No, you don't.
3 that you like and trade the other 2 because all of them have value. And get yourself some draft capital. You got a huge hole at tight end with Dallas Goedert, Chris Herndon, Vance McDonald.
I'm okay with that because if Zacharias leaves town next year,
Well,
then
that's
you know,
you're basing it on
it's
ifs
a big
though.
if.
It's a
It
big
is,
if.
but he has other needs. I would have, running back for sure, and even wide receiver over tight end.
Goddard's
I'm okay
fine.
with him waiting on tight end. I'm fine with that.
Goddard's fine to hold on to. I think if you're a team, because this team is definitely needs to go into rebuild mode, and Goddard is a fine piece to hold on to in case of what you said. Ertz leaves town. Boom, you've got something solid there that is not nearly near his peak draft capital. I don't think.
Yeah, and Chris Herndon and Vance McDonald. So tight end's probably his only spot that I feel pretty confident in.
I'm confident in his wide receivers. I just don't think that
wide receivers.
I just don't think that with the running back and quarterback situation being the way it is, that you should be holding 5 guys that have wide receiver value. I think you got to pick 2 and trade them and try to get yourself some draft capital or get yourself some running back health if you plan on competing. But I wouldn't plan on competing. The draft, though, we got to talk about this draft.
Yeah, we do.
Devin Singletary at the 108.
Puke.
I am screaming at trade back at that point. If you don't want to make that, trade back. Get Darrell Henderson. Get Damian Harris. Alex Madison. Noah Fant was still available at that point in time. Darwin Thompson was drafted relatively high in this, but he was there. Trade back from the 108 if you don't want to make that pick. Devin Singletary, not good.
Yeah. This is like Ronald Jones to me, where he's going to not win the job in a backfield where it's very easily winnable, even with TJ Yeldon there and, LaShawn McCoy. But
Hakeem Butler can kind of say the same thing. You don't need a wide receiver unless you're planning on using him as a trade piece, especially not when you already have Christian Kirk. So, again, I thought more could have been done there. Dwayne Haskins at the 205, that's a reach. And single quarterback, let's just say the first 2 quarterbacks went about a round early.
He's probably kicking himself for taking Haskins there, not knowing he would have gotten Andy Dalton. I understand why he took Haskins there. I do.
I'm completely okay.
Still a reach. It's still a reach, though.
I'm completely okay with taking the development quarterback, but in single quarterback, Dwayne Haskins at the 205 just doesn't seem like it's it either. He did take Darwin Thompson at the 212, so okay with that. It's not an RB1. The other thing you could have tried to do, instead of trading back from the 108, trade up.
Yeah.
And address that running back position.
Try to get a slip in Sanders. I mean, Sanders went 2 picks ahead of Devin Singletary, and he slipped. I mean, it would have been a little bit difficult just given how far he fell. This is talking about Miles Sanders, but he has the pieces to do it if you needed running back that bad.
You did. I mean, you could have flipped first-round picks and pretty much tossed Godwin in on top and called it good.
I mean, fuck, Godwin's worth the 101. Godwin's almost worth the 101.
Yeah, or even Christian Kirk or Dante Pettis, because I like them more than, in their situations, more than most of the wide receivers in this draft. Terry McLaurin, again, didn't think it was needed. Kelvin Harmon, same thing. Andy Dalton, though, we got to the 5th round, and you finally have something that I like.
Something that makes sense.
Something that makes sense was realizing Andy Dalton was out there and taking him. He's got a chance to have a big year with people around him, but at the same time, you desperately needed a backup quarterback, and you're going to have to ride the hot hand between Garoppolo and Dalton if you're going to try to win anything. This is a team that definitely needs to be rebuilt.
Yeah, and there's a lot of miss pieces. Winning, not drafting Haskins to 205 and trying to grab a Darrell Henderson or Justice Hill that was still there at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking Devin Singletary is going to be it's like taking Ronald Jones last year. It's just going to be a mistake. You're going to be kicking yourself for that. And just, I don't know. I would have tried to trade it into 2020, see if I can get some 2020 seconds for my second rounders. Try to blow up this roster just a little bit. You don't have to blow it up entirely, but
no, there's nice pieces there, especially wide receiver, but they're tradable, and you got to trade from depth to fix that running back position, and then I think you're okay. Try to get somebody young.
As soon as Damon Williams blows up, trade him. Tevin Coleman, if he has a couple good weeks, trade him. You need guys that have more long-term value.
Yeah,
and those guys don't have it. Duke Johnson, if he could get traded in real life, sure, but right now, Kerryon Johnson is your only true starter outside of Damian Williams as of right now, and
Yeah,
I don't feel great about it.
Kerryon has struggled with injuries through college and now into the NFL.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So, I mean, you can't even necessarily rely on that as a true starter per se. I mean, go
This
talk
guy
to the
will
guy
know
that
by
has
week
3
4.
starting running backs.
Yeah. This guy will know by week 3 or 4 if he's competing, and hopefully he can make some of those better decisions at that time.
Yeah. Maneuver from there.
Yeah.
So moving on to, I guess I'll throw a letter grade on this. D.
I give it a D plus.
Yeah, D plus because it's Haskins, not where you drafted him, but that you drafted him, and Dalton, and that's really it.
He tried to address the running back position. He just picked the wrong running
like
back at the wrong time.
Yeah.
You didn't need to take 3 receivers in this draft, though.
Nope. Moving on to Jack Attack, and is this the one where the first round pick is what you wanted to cry about?
I wanted to do all the things. Like, why?
I did too.
I feel like half this league just like I want to own all the quarterbacks, and it's like they're like it's all Steve Balin to me, where it's like you draft 6 quarterbacks in a single QB league and still take Baker Mayfield.
The parity in this league is pretty impressive between good rosters and not good rosters, I think.
Yeah,
I think
it's kind of like hockey.
It's like half and half.
Yeah,
It's like half and half. Anyway, looking at this roster, speaking of quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Sam Darnold. I like that. You got 2 older quarterbacks, but they're older and they're solid. And Sam Darnold's a good development piece.
Yeah, but great quarterback core right there. You don't need the draft anymore.
Yep. You look at the running backs. I don't hate that either. Mark Ingram, James Conner, Tariq Cohen, Le'Veon Bell. That's fine to start 2 to 3 of every week. And you got Kenyon Drake and John Kelly there as well. I mean, you literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that are going to give you some value every week out of your 6.
He's got 2 starters in Bell and Conner easily, and 3 easy flex pieces in Cohen, Drake, and Ingram.
He does. You look at the wide receiver position, Keenan Allen, 1. Tyler Boyd, Brandon Cooks, Robert Foster, who was good last year, Marquise Lee, who could be solid coming back, DJ Moore, who's up and coming, and then Keith Kirkwood, Deshaun Jackson, Curtis Samuel as depth pieces. There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine.
Good receiving core. Oh, it's not great. It's good.
Tight end. You don't need these 4 guys rostered. Kyle Rudolph, okay. Charles Clay, Will Disley, Jesse James, rough. Although, that gets addressed.
Thankfully.
Yep. So, looking at the draft, Kyler Murray is the one that made us say, what the hell?
Yeah.
Because
like he passed up on Miles Sanders to take Kyler Murray in a 1 QB league.
And again, not a need, but trade it. Trade back.
Yeah, like if you don't want to take somebody, just trade it.
You got the 107. You didn't.
Yeah.
You don't draft a quarterback first round, no matter how good they're going to be. And Kyler Murray is going to be good. He's our 101 in super flex. You do not take a quarterback first round in single quarterback.
No,
there's not enough parity. There's no reason to it. And when I saw that in the draft results, my thought was, man, I hope he was as desperate as I am at quarterback in one of my leagues, because I am super desperate in one league at quarterback. But it's a super flex league, and I have 1 starter. It's like you got to have no starting quarterback to justify that, to even try to justify that.
You got 3 starters,
and you got 3 starters, and you've got 3 starters in the form of 2 guys that could start on any given week depending on matchup, and 1 guy that's a rookie that was a high pick last year that's going to develop in single quarterback. Kyler Murray was not necessary. I think you should have tried to trade that either for because I like your roster overall. I really do. I think that this is a team that compete for a championship.
Running back core?
Yeah.
Oh man, you could have moved on from. You could have tried to trade Cohen or James Conner if you're going from
punt it to next year.
Or just it's
punt it to next year, or try to get yourself another piece. See if you can flip it for a wide receiver that, another guy of around Keenan Allen. I mean, just some thoughts with that. I don't think if this is my team, I am not making that 104 pick. And I'm not drafting Kyler Murray. That is just flat out, if I've got the 104 and the 107 and my team is this stacked, I'm not drafting at 104.
I have no issue if Miles Sanders is there taking that pick. I'm fine with his first two. I'm fine with the rest of his draft. I'm fine with.
Mm-hmm.
That it's that 104 that's gonna come back to bite him in his ass.
Hell, I don't even know that it will because he just didn't have any glaring need. I think.
Well, I mean, if Miles Sanders blows up and something happens to his run, I mean, you're right. Probably not this year, and it may never happen.
I think he's fine at running back if something happens to one of them, though.
He could, but you still could have added Miles Sanders to that mix, who may not even be great this year. You know, I haven't projected as not being more than an RB.
I get what you're saying. It's worth a shot at the 104 to take Miles Sanders, and it definitely was.
Yeah.
I get that it wasn't a need because it's not.
Nope. You can just trade the pick for 2020, as you, I think, mentioned earlier. So
Yeah, that's why I'm saying trade the pick for 2020. If you're making it, I agree. It's Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
If you're making that pick. Beyond that, I liked it. You could just tell me that these are the players you drafted, and if you didn't put the rounds on them, I would think this is an excellent draft.
Right?
TJ Hawkinson, 107, address the tight end need. Perfect. That is the perfect move there at 107. You'll get Hawk, who's the best tight end in this draft, who's probably going to be used a lot like Gronkowski was. You pair him with Kyle Rudolph if he gets off to a slow start or something like that, who's in a tumultuous situation anyway. You don't need Charles Clay or Jesse James. Hold on to Will Dissly just in case. A.J. Brown, love that pick. The rich get richer at wide receiver there. He's going to need some time either for Ryan Tannehill to take that job from Mariota, or Mariota to show that he's not crap, or them to draft a quarterback or something, but you don't have to start him right away. It's a hell of a development piece. Jordan Scarlett in Carolina, we talked about him a decent amount during the pre-draft process. Incredibly talented person that had some off-field issues, but you know, if they truly are serious about wanting to just spell Christian McCaffrey from time to time, he's going to have a shot at doing that. And Emmanuel Hall with the 5th round pick with the Bears, when they're clearly trying to stock up on speed, he's a guy that had he not had the medical concerns, probably would have been drafted. I love it. I love the draft. This is a grade A draft. If you just didn't tell me you put Kyler Murray at the 104, I'm still going to give it an A- because the only thing I hate about it is Kyler Murray at the 104. But I'm just hating it because of where you took him. Overall, the rest of the draft was fine, and I don't think he got hurt by taking him there. I just don't like that he went there at a one quarterback.
It's a B draft because he shouldn't have taken a quarterback at any point in this draft, regardless if he took Murray at any point, because he doesn't need him, and there's not a lot of value to him right now. He should have traded it for another player. Try to trade, to a team that's looking for more pieces. You could have added, to your running back or wide receiver core, maybe even tight end. This is before taking TJ Hawkinson. It's a good draft outside of Murray, but taking Murray really hurt this draft.
Yep.
This could have been this could have been the best draft in this league, and that pick.
You said Murray
may
for
not hurt him this
Sanders
year, but at some point he's going to look at Miles Sanders as a potential RB1 and be pissed that he didn't take him.
If you take Miles Sanders there, that is the best draft I saw.
Yeah.
So moving on to Roadhouse. Jared Goff, Russell Wilson. It's a quarterback. That's fine.
Great.
The only thing I would add here again is I like having a development quarterback in one QB. That's how I structure most of my one QB teams. Is I have a starter, a backup just in case, and then a development guy. Running back, Devonta Freeman, Melvin Gordon, perfectly fine as a 1-2 punch. Adrian Peterson, Jay Ajayi, CJ Anderson, Matt Breida, Frank Gore.
Oof,
I like
some depth,
Breida, but you need some depth because Breida can't stay healthy. And Devonta Freeman also has his own injury problems, so I would be trying to add depth there. Wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, great. Stephon Diggs, perfect. Really good 1-2. Again, you need depth behind that. Calvin Ridley isn't a 2-3 guy yet. Michael Crabtree isn't on a team. Josh Jackson's been floundering away in Washington as nothing for a while. Cordero Patterson, Albert Wilson. Albert Wilson can't get healthy. Cordero Patterson isn't going to be anything other than a returner, I don't think. Tight end, no reason to hold the 4. Travis Kelce, Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen's playing again this year. As soon as he has a good game, trade him to somebody that needs a tight end. hold
Yeah.
Kelsey, drop Gates. I guess hold on to your butts for now because it doesn't hurt to
No,
have
you
a
can drop
development tight
butt
end.
with Noah Fant there.
Oh, yeah, you can drop butt. You don't need 2 kickers either or 3 defenses.
Not right now. You don't
Aside
need the roster
from that,
any more than one.
I mean, I would find things to try to stack this roster with pieces out there on waiver wires. Try to get yourself some more. Take a couple dart throw running backs that are floating around out there. Same thing with wide receiver. Let me just throw Stanley Morgan Jr.'s name out there. Somebody I didn't see get drafted that should probably be rostered in some place.
He did not get drafted.
So, going on from that, though, looking at this draft, Jalen Hurd in the 3rd round. There are no early round picks here. So, Jalen Hurd in the 3rd, Deontay Johnson in the 3rd, Elijah Holyfield in the 5th. Again, nothing was done to address running back depth. Elijah Holyfield doesn't count. He will compete for that spelling Christian McCaffrey role, although not a lot you could have done in the 3rd and 4th, 5th round. So, okay, fine. Jalen Hurd is a really, really good development piece. You don't necessarily need him to start, but again, you don't know how quick he's going to get to it either.
He actually passed up on Damian Harris twice.
Yep, I wouldn't have done that. I would have taken Damian Harris at some point there for depth. Deontay Johnson in the 3rd round, I'm okay with that. I don't like Deontay Johnson necessarily, but at the 3rd round, it's all dart throws. He had draft capital put in him, and there is opportunity for targets. So, as much as I don't like the player, fine. This is like a D+.
Yeah, I mean it's so late in the process, so it's D minus D plus D.
It's hard to
It's
grade,
fall, just what he
it's
has.
hard to grade one like that early on when you don't have any picks before the mid 3rd round in a draft that actually ended up a lot shallower than a lot of people thought it would be for fantasy
Well,
purposes.
I mean, he did miss on taking Harris twice. Maybe he doesn't like Harris, and that's his own thing.
This league doesn't like Harris for whatever reason, and I'm assuming that they're pro Sony Michel, but you don't spin that draft pick on somebody when you have full confidence in your current running back.
Yeah. All right. Next one.
Rolls Royce.
I loved his draft. Ooh.
I loved his draft also. Sort of. I didn't like 1, 2 picks, 3 picks. I thought his draft was okay. Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson. That's a great quarterback set.
Yep.
Just keep it
Trade
right
one
there.
of I'd
Trade one of them.
Mayfield or Watson, because you're going to get the most value for them.
Yep. Or wait for Stafford to rebound because it'll happen at some point, and then trade him. But yeah, I would trade one of those quarterbacks and get yourself a development piece. You got 3 solid starters there. Again, I'm just not a big.
You have 2 top 5.
2 top
quarterbacks in
5s, yeah.
Dynasty, so you don't need to
running
roster
back,
2.
severe lack of depth, but 3 starters and a guy we really liked last year.
Yeah.
Kamara, Mixon, Miller. I mean, that's a good 1, 2, 3, honestly.
Yeah.
Royce Freeman's a good development piece. I just think you need more behind him, personally.
Oh, he definitely
And
does.
you took care of that, though.
He did.
Wide receiver, Adam Thielen, Michael Thomas, Sterling Shepard, Jarvis Landry. It's a great 1 through 4. You've got MVS there, who's going to have a chance at least in Green Bay. And then David Moore, who could... Seattle, yeah. I mean, that's who knows right there. So, again, I like what you have there. I think that you're lacking a bit of depth, but when you're putting out starters, this is Rolls-Royce, you're fine.
Yeah.
Same thing with Hunter Henry at tight end. Mike Gesicki behind him. Good development piece. CJ Uzama. When Eifert, or did Uzama go to Buffalo?
No, he's still.
Croft went to Buffalo.
Tyler Croft went to Buffalo.
Uzama stayed.
Yep.
So I think you're completely fine with that tight end set too. Yep. I think overall the top end of this roster is good. Drop one of your defenses. Again, there's no reason,
2 of them.
No reason to roster 3
in the offseason.
I'm okay with the roster 2 because I've kept 2 rostered the last couple off seasons in a lot of places just because I don't want them to get snapped. But I mean, the Saints is really the only one that I look at here and say worth holding on to. If you're going to hold on to another one, hold on to Green Bay because I got a lot of young, nice pieces and did some great work with that defense in the offseason. Get rid of the Jets. Looking at the draft, I think the reason we both love this or look at this and say we love this is primarily Miles Sanders.
Yeah,
in the
that,
deal
that
you
guy
got
must
on
have
him.
been jumping for joy when he saw him at the 106.
Yep. The rich get richer there at running back. So when he blows up and you're comfortable with him, you can try to move Miller for peanuts or Freeman, or just hold it and keep that depth.
Hold him.
Yeah, hold him.
Unless you can get a high-end receiver or tight end if you want to try to go for a title run. He's got pieces to move to make a run if it all falls in place for him.
Yep. I have no idea. So Dexter Williams, I'm going to skip over because I don't believe he's worth anything there.
Deshaun Hamilton.
Deshaun Hamilton at the 310 is
How the
insane.
fuck did he make it to the?
How the hell was he not rostered?
How was he not picked up at some point last year and just rostered? And then how the fuck did he make it to the
310,
back of the third round?
Not
He's
rostered.
A starting receiver.
He's a starting receiver that flashed a bit, that we liked a lot coming out last year, and that's going to have opportunity now that Demaryius Thomas isn't there and he gets a chance to be healthy. Deshaun Hamilton should have probably been
somewhere in the
second rounder here with him floating around out there. So really, really, I'm going to give you props for awareness, for realizing he was out there and making that pick, because I'm betting people were so focused on rookies, they weren't looking at free agents to draft.
That sounds like what he did, too. He was like, oh, I took Dexter Williams. Oh, that kind of sucked. Oh, shit, Deshaun's there.
Right.
That works.
Exactly. And that's fine. Again, good awareness for snapping up Deshaun Hamilton. That is a fantastic move on a team that needs depth. Gary Jennings, you were a fan of his?
I like the landing spot. With Doug Baldwin there, there's some opportunity, and in the fourth round,
it'll be him or
dart throws.
It'll be him or David Moore that takes over that former Lockett/Paul Richardson deep play role when Lockett takes over for Baldwin, or DK. But still, there's a chance. And in the fourth round, that's all you can ask for. What do you know about Darren Waller?
I don't know anything about Darren Waller.
Okay, he's
I don't know the fuck
rostered by the Ravens.
That's not a good thing already.
So. Got to look him up.
I am.
I don't know.
Drafted by the Raiders.
Oh, Raiders. That's it.
Tight end. So.
Yeah, I don't have a thought there. So, I mean, overall, Miles Sanders is great value. Deshaun Hamilton was great awareness. I'll give it a B minus because the other three picks, like Dexter Williams, I don't like. Gary Jennings, I know Dan likes more than I do, and I am just not familiar enough with Darren Waller. It's a fifth round pick. Good going for the opportunity. Yeah. So
I give it a B plus, hinging on an A minus because of of the landings.
B minus for me. This is indeed the last one. So looking
not
at
on a high note though.
It is kind of not a high note.
This roster's pretty bad.
It comes down to positional awareness too here. Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Mariota, you're fine there.
Yep.
Fine starter. Mariota's fine as a backup in this format, especially given the way this league looks like it wants to hold quarterbacks. Running back is a cluster.
It's bad.
Kareem Hunt suspended. James White, half PPR, that's fine as a flex.
Trade him.
Rex Burkhead. Nope. Yeah, trade him. Exactly. Rex Burkhead, not worth anything. Carlos Hyde, he's got a chance, but he hasn't. I mean, you're hoping and praying for that. Theo Riddick, Wendell Smallwood, the fringe on if they should even be rostered in 12 team.
This is this might be the worst roster. Mahomes probably win him a couple games.
And
you got some bad luck though with Hunt and Doug Baldwin. But
you did. You're not.
You can't even really blow up this roster.
Yeah. Well, Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. Don't hold on to him. You can't do anything with Mariota. You can't do anything with Hunt right now. James White's tradable. Carlos Hyde, if you find somebody that's buying into the hype, is tradable. Riddick, Smallwood, Burkhead, you can't get anything for them right now. Geronimo Allison.
Receivers though.
Yeah, Doug Baldwin's retired. He's worth nothing. Kelvin Benjamin isn't worth anything. Geronimo Allison isn't worth anything. Randall Cobb isn't worth anything. Dorsett, not worth anything. Marquise Goodwin, its stock's completely low. Moncrief is probably your best bet there.
Westbrook.
And Westbrook.
Westbrook. Like, this is the roster where if anything. I'm trying to get fielders here. I'm trying to get third or fourth rounders
You
for
got
guys that
to.
aren't going to be in your team that may not be, in the NFL in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep Trey Quinn. You can, keep D.D. Westbrook unless you can get something pretty high for them. As much as I love Trey Quinn, this roster, this is at least 2 years. He needs
At least
a
a 2 year
good draft
rebuild.
next year.
Yep.
Oh boy,
Delaney
brutal.
Walker is also tradable from this
He's
roster.
got to play though. Yeah, he's got to
Keep
Like,
Jono.
you got to find the championship team or a championship caliber team that needs a tight end.
Yeah, keep Johnny, but other than that, this is one that needs
Yeah.
to be rebuilt.
Ugh.
As for the draft, Noah Fant at the 112, that's fine, but you could have done better positionally here. I mean, if I'm doing this, I'm looking at A.J. Brown. I'm looking at potentially sliding back to the early second and just trying to stock picks. But Noah Fant's fine there.
Yeah.
Ridley, I don't love it, but it's the 307. I mean, if he flashes at all, I don't think you will in that offense. Benny Snell's a third string running back, and I believe was taken ahead of Madison, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, in Pittsburgh where they don't use multiple running backs.
Amendola, the only reason you're picking him up is if you hope you can trade him.
Yep.
And Keyshawn Johnson, I don't get. So this is not a great roster and not a great draft.
Yeah. I mean, he had no second round picks. You should have traded your 112. Maybe I'm just selling out this year and trying to go for 2020.
Well, this isn't a great
as
draft to
start.
rebuild in anyway, given all the landing spots that were kind of crap and everything. I mean,
His roster doesn't you can get something for Hunt. Like at this point, you got to try something. 'Cause I don't know what he's going to be worth when he comes back in week 9 when you only have maybe a couple more weeks until this league's trade deadline. If it's
you got to keep your finger on the pulse. You got to hope somebody desperately needs a running back and believes in Kareem Hunt and capitalize on that. Because Kareem Hunt is going to be your most tradable piece based on talent alone, because you don't want to move Mahomes. And quite honestly, you don't even want to do that right now either. Not while the waters are tepid. You may even hold on to Kareem Hunt into next year just to see what happens before you can move him for the value you should be able to get for him.
I get that. I mean, this is a tragedy.
This one's tough.
The roster. This one, I don't know what you're gonna do.
Yep.
You need some work, and hopefully you can get it figured out there, Mr. Woodhead. I know you didn't have a whole lot of luck on your side with this, but
yep.
Good luck.
Yep. I got bit by both of those guys too, so I feel your pain. That's all we got. So hopefully this was some unique insight, especially with us debating over all this. Derek, thank you for the idea. I hope that you guys enjoyed this breakdown of your league as much as we enjoyed doing it. Starting next week, we'll get into division previews. We're going to start looking into every team on a week-by-week basis, look at what they added, look at what their strengths are, weaknesses are, where the opportunities are, and even get into some stat projections on how we think guys will do. So I believe we're starting with the AFC East and then moving on from there. So be sure to tune in next week whenever we do that. Again, follow the show at BeerfieldFF, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. Dan, any last words?
No. If you guys want us to do more of these, maybe we can sneak them in when we're doing our division previews. But this was fun. I know
it won't be this in depth if that happens.
It won't be this in depth. It's our first time doing this. We're just kind of feeling the waters on something that's pretty unique.
It was fun to do, and we kind of had an open week where we didn't necessarily have anything planned because of the wedding, and it was a low prep episode. But as we get in through, running one show a week, schedules are going to be tight. But if you have something or you just want overall thoughts, we can do that for you. If you have something that we can maybe knock out in 15, 20 minutes, we'll do that too. So shoot us your ideas.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. Thank you.
See ya.